Greetings, friends. I'm going to address the people who say that they don't believe in conspiracy theories. Like, whatever it is you've mentioned to them, whether it's something to do with the current virus situation and government actions, whether it's something before that, um, anything relating to a government or corporation or someone powerful, or I mean, the pedophilia thing, that might be Hollywood pedophilia, that. Uh, Jeffrey Epstein, all that stuff. I mean, you might be met with a response by someone saying, well, I just don't believe in conspiracy theories. I'm not into conspiracy theories. And I'll just say at the outset that maybe they're having a legitimate reaction against kooky, loopy people, because there are loopy people out there. There are people very spaced out, and sometimes those are the ones that get focused on. And those are the ones that the general public are going to see first. That's going to create a negative impression. So with some justification, they're weary. However, to really commit to the belief that conspiracy theories are not something to be taken seriously, and should we even be using the word conspiracy theory? Because as we'll see, that was engineered in a way. But I'm going to go over some basic material here so we can think about what do these people actually mean, because when you boil it down, it seems to be that they're going to only accept what the state says, what the institutions, what the media says. In other words, what the most number of supposedly verifiable source of authority are saying, which of course is a logical fallacy. That's kind of like the bandwagon fallacy, or where if everyone else is saying it, then it must be true, or just attributing truth because a person in a position of authority is saying it. I mean, I guess we all have to have faith, so I guess we all have to have axioms that we believe in. So okay, fair enough. But at the very least, then it shows a clash of religions. It's almost like a spiritual conflict where these people just have fundamentally different axioms, and in their religious worldview, the conspiracy theory is the opposite, or not the opposite, but that's like a heretical religion to them. And fair enough, maybe it is in their worldview, and likewise for us. But anyways, let's just try to look at this whole conspiracy theory idea, because if you go to Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia is not the best for trusting on they censor stuff, they're controlled as well, but this is pretty basic information here, so I don't think there's necessarily a problem in using some of their articles, because they have a section on conspiracy, criminal conspiracy, which is, of course, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just, briefly going over it. We can see that it's a very common offense in law. It's existed for a long time. It's an agreement between two or more persons to commit a crime at some time in the future. So in some countries, this may require at least one overt act be undertaken for this to be an offense. This could be like two companies getting together, car companies agreeing amongst themselves to sell low quality car, like used cars, like not what they're like, basically lying to people and selling them a more low quality product, but they're doing that together so they can all benefit. That would be an example of something that could be prosecuted in law. So in the legal world, in other words, conspiracies are very real. These people who are trying to convince, they might say, oh, well, that's small guys, that's little guys, that's just little companies. It's not like, oh, the big institutions could be doing this stuff. I mean, I guess it's more difficult to pin them down, but there's no in the legal world, that's not true. It's just more difficult because those people are more powerful. They have more money for lawyers. They have more connections. Well, they have something called conspiracy to corrupt public morals and conspiracy to outrage public decency. Now, I don't know if these are really things you could be punished on today. But it says here that these offenses were at one time tied up with prostitution and homosexual behavior. After the Second World War, conspiracy to murder, conspiracy to effect public mischief. So again, these are all like individual crimes, like low-level, peasant crimes, bad things. But are they really the big corporations? Are they the governments. That's the stumbling block for a lot of people to move up to a higher level. No, they couldn't possibly be evil. Maybe they believe in evil, but evil couldn't possibly inhabit the upper reaches of our society. It's a spiritual battle. It's different axioms here. That's an axiom for them. The upper echelons of power cannot have evil, or maybe their axiom is, I don't really believe in evil. Or I don't know, but because if you don't believe in I mean, if you believe in evil, then why wouldn't it, reach the top? So, an article on the conspiracy against the United States. To conspire or to defraud the United States means primarily to cheat the government out of property or money. It also means to interfere with or obstruct one of its lawful government functions by deceit, craft, or trickery, or at least by means that are dishonest. And then I can just say off the top of my head, the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964, which was in the waters off Vietnam. Well, there was North and South Vietnam, and the U.S. had some Navy boats. Apparently, they were actually approached by some North Vietnamese torpedo boats on one occasion, and the U.S. fired on them, and some of the Vietnamese were killed. And however, the context leading up to this had been more agitation by the U.S., like infiltrating the North with South Vietnamese commandos that they had trained, and they were infiltrating the North, committing, violence, and there were other ways that they were, indirectly attacking the Vietnamese, not like directly in a hot war. So it's not like the North Vietnamese just sent their torpedo boats out of the blue. And then what happened was a few days later after that first incident in the Gulf of Tonkin, they reported, officially the narrative was that there was a second North Vietnamese attack. This was used by the Department of Defense and eventually like Lyndon Johnson, the president, to initiate like a real war against North Vietnam, although it wasn't technically like a declaration of war. There was only one legitimate attack. They said the North Vietnamese attacked a few days later, but in reality that never happened. And it was used to start this full-scale war in Vietnam. The truth about how that North Vietnamese attack, the second one, had never existed, that didn't come out really until 2005, like decades after. In the United States, Congress, which makes the rules for the military, has the power under the Constitution to declare war. However, neither the U.S. Constitution nor any act of Congress stipulate what format a declaration of war must take. The last time Congress passed joint resolutions saying that a state of war existed was on June 5th, 1942, when the U.S. declared war on Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. Since then, the U.S. has used the term authorization to use military force, as in the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So it's not like they really even declared a full war in Vietnam. I mean, and then just the question of war in general. Like I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Then how does a conventional war happen? And I know we're living in an age of not conventional war, not the sort of traditional statecraft after Westphalia statecraft type of nation state war. I know we're not really living in that world anymore, but still, I mean, whether it's private armies or state-run armies, like how do you think wars occur? By a few men getting together and deciding to do things. So there was the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and then there's how the federal government prosecutes people for terrorism. Like, what do you think terrorism is? And states can commit terrorism against other states. Here's like a double conspiracy where they set up potential terrorists, and they like to target, so like what they call white nationalists or anyone who could fit that bill. That would be perfect for them. They don't want to target the potentially more dangerous people from the Middle East or that part of the world, at least in regards of terrorism. Well, they do, but they want to publicize one against the other, especially in Europe. Not so much in North America; it's less of an issue, but But basically, so they'll go after someone and then they'll set them up in some cases. They were conspiring to commit terrorism and kill people. But then they were really just agreeing to it, and maybe they were being taken advantage of because they fit the bill. They were like a good candidate to hold up to the cameras and say, we're doing our job against these right-wing radicals, right? So it's like a double. It's like they were committing a conspiracy, but you were committing the CIA or the federal government, or maybe the FBI, committing conspiracy too, to goad people along for these publicly prosecuted crimes. And I'm not denying that terrorism, all of these things have some truth to them. There's always there's some truth. That's what makes them more powerful. I mean, obviously there have been terrorist attacks in the United States. They have, but dry conspiracy, that's a term which means agreeing to something without having committed it. So that's the thing in the legal world. I know I'm jumping around here, but in history, but there was Operation Paperclip, which happened right after World War II. Operation Paperclip was a secret program of the Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency in which more than 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians, such as Wernher von Braun and his V-2 rocket team, were taken from Germany to the United States for U.S. government employment, primarily between 1945 and 1959. Many were former members of the Nazi Party, and some of them were former leaders of the Nazi Party. So anyways, this was a secret program at the time. And then there was Operation Mongoose. Operation Mongoose was a covert operation of the CIA against Fidel Castro's government in Cuba, officially authorized on November 30th, 1961 by President Kennedy. And they did propaganda, they did some, physical subversion, but, there was military, there was sort of like cutting off economic trade and, like embargoes and all sorts of stuff going on. So where the military operations and economic actions, where that stops and Operation Mongoose stuff starts, it's like it gets blurry. But this was a covert operation. I want to conclude by looking at CIA document 1035-960 concerning criticism of the Warren Report. The Warren Report was issued after President Kennedy's assassination in the early 60s, and they were doing an official investigation into it, how it could have happened, who could have been responsible. It didn't satisfy a lot of people. It was a huge document, like giant book this big, but obviously a lot of people didn't like what it had, or just found problems with it in the explanations they gave. I begin the document by talking that there's been speculation from the day of President Kennedy's assassination on the official narrative, which didn't offer much of an explanation. I guess the official story was that Lee Harvey Oswald, the assassin of Kennedy who shot him, they say that he acted alone, or probably alone, or we'll never really know. But he was an untrustworthy character, and they didn't admit that they had been tracking him at least since the late 50s, because he had tried to defect to the Soviet Union. So that didn't come out until much later. Decades later, I think. The memo is only about 20 paragraphs. It's written in clear, concise style. No author to this memo that I can see, of course. And they're just saying that basically, this criticism, it hurts the reputation of the U.S. government, and the people who wrote the Warren Report, they were from all different parts of America, representing all Americans. So by questioning them, you are destroying the reputation of all Americans somehow. Like that makes sense. That's sort of what they're insinuating, and then they discuss what needs to be done about it. We do not recommend that discussion of the assassination question be initiated. Assassination question meaning the assassination of JFK. They're saying do not initiate this discussion in places where it is not already taking place. Where there are discussions already taking place, then you guys, meaning the receivers of the CIA memo, you are requested to to discuss the publicity problem with friendly elite contacts, especially politicians and editors, pointing out that the Warren Commission made as thorough an investigation as humanly possible, that the charges of the critics are without serious foundation, and that further speculative discussion only plays into the hands of the opposition. And then point out that parts of the conspiracy talk appear to be deliberately generated by communist propagandists, urge them to use their influence to discourage unfounded and irresponsible speculation. I mean, we could go more down the rabbit hole because there was communist subversion. I mean, that's technically true. So you see how they work in this occult world is they weave in between the truth, and then they throw up smoke and mirrors and question things, and they always have to use some truth, but that's how they lie, because they take things out of context, they mischaracterize things. They deliberately go after reputations of people. And continuing, it urges these people, meaning politicians and editors, to use their influence to discourage unfounded and irresponsible speculation. That's code word for questioning the Warren Report conclusions, or Warren Commission conclusions. So there it is. Those were the direct words. Use them to use their influence, urge them to use their influence to discourage these ideas. And then B, to employ propaganda assets to refute the attacks of the critics, meaning the critics of the report. Book reviews and feature articles are particularly appropriate for this purpose. The unclassified attachments to this guidance should provide useful background material for passing to assets. Our ploy should point out that the critics are wedded to theories adopted before the evidence was in, and that they are politically interested, as if the people in the CIA don't have their own political interests, and that they are also financially interested, hasty and inaccurate. So anyways, you get the idea. It's going on attacking the reputation, insinuating things. Let me just read clearly what they're saying here. Number 4, in private to media discussions not directed at any particular writer, or in attacking publications which may be yet forthcoming, the following arguments should be useful. No significant new evidence has emerged which the Commission did not consider. Okay, so they're just talking about how they're going to discuss the report. Critics, they say B, critics usually overvalue particular items and ignore others. Okay, so they're again focusing on the critics themselves. C, conspiracy on the large scale often suggested would be impossible to conceal in the United States. Oh, okay, this is something we might hear today. Conspiracy on the large scale, which is suggested, would be impossible to conceal in the United States. If the official narrative on the virus is not the truth, how on earth could they conceal that? Scientists would be speaking out. We would know the truth, wouldn't we? We wouldn't. No one would be censored, right? Of course they wouldn't be censored. How could they be censored? Oh, so this is a good one. And again, this document is early 60s, not long after the Kennedy assassination. And they're saying, yeah, it's impossible. You can't conceal it. Why? Because informants could expect to receive large royalties. They would get paid tons of money to spill the beans. Yeah, or maybe they would get a bullet in the back of the head. Just a thought. That's my own insight there. And then they say in the document, note that Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General at the time, and John Kennedy's brother, would be the last man to overlook or conceal any conspiracy. And as one reviewer pointed out, Congressman Gerald Ford would hardly have held his tongue for the sake of the Democratic administration. So blah, blah, blah. It's just saying that, no, this wouldn't possibly happen. This is about mind control tactics. This is not a philosophy paper document. This is CIA mind control tactics elucidated in clear language. They say D, use the argument that critics have often been enticed by a form of pride, an intellectual pride. Oh, blah, blah, blah. It's all just I at home kind of just, going attacking the credibility of the source, which I guess, I mean, they're slimy, evil bastards, but, when I say the media are a disgrace, I'm kind of using the same tactics. You gotta go to the source of the problem here. And to give them credit, the CIA recognized the problem. And they went straight to the source. Discredit the critics. Sometimes you got to use that same. I'm not saying that's the best strategy always, but sometimes you got to do that. Today you got to discredit the media. Go straight to the source. So that's some Machiavellian knowledge here. Not that all of this is great, stuff to focus on, but. And then they say, finally, Oswald, the assassin, would not have been any sensible person's choice for a co-conspirator, blah, blah, blah. So I think you get the idea of this document. And this is part of why people point out that the CIA was more or less the people who initiated the word conspiracy theory as a meme to get it into the popular culture. You saw it right there, or you heard it right there. They're talking to the editors, politicians. So in conclusion, nowadays, conspiracy theory is just used by people as a derogatory word to dismiss those who question any official narrative, whether it's from the government, the media, the big institutions. If you question the official narrative in any of these cases, you could be categorized as a conspiracy theorist, which of course is very simplistic. That's very unfair, because the list of things that could be labeled as a conspiracy theory are infinite. It's being used to dismiss those, of course, who question the official narrative on the virus, why governments had lockdowns and all these other measures, supposedly in the name of saving lives. But then conspiracy theories also applied to people who fit into the QAnon, flat earth, chemtrails, controlled demolition of the World Trade Center on 9/11 people, anti-vaccine people. And the idea here is guilt by association, in other words. So if you believe in 9/11 being a government conspiracy, but you don't believe QAnon, too bad. You guys are all QAnon and 9/11 conspiracy theorists. And of course, some of these alternative theories are shared by many people who question the official narrative. But I'm just pointing out that, this is a strategy they use of grouping you all in together, and the strategy is to stop the general public from listening to alternative views. I mean, in my own experience from meeting many people who were protesting the lockdown and mandatory masks and protesting mandatory vaccinations, these sorts of people, I don't know, it's a big mix of people. I've pointed out that it tends to be from a European white background, but not all of them. There's some Asians, there's some black people, or at least people from that background, but then in terms of their actual ideas, yes, I have met some flat earthers, a few. I've met maybe one or two QAnon people. I've met like people might talk about chemtrails or all these things, but that's not the majority. The majority of people might just have loosely, maybe just suspicion of the government and standing up for freedom. Really, not everyone there would call them, even label themselves as anything that specifically, but they're all opposing one narrative. And by just coming up otherwise you'd be just an average person, but by stepping up and now questioning one story, now you're looped in with all these other theories, for better or for worse. It's true, once you start questioning the narrative, maybe you do go down the rabbit hole a little bit and you start questioning other things. But certainly what the enemy is going to do is they're going to focus on what they see as the most kookiest or loopiest people and loopiest theories. And I'm not actually trying to say here what theory is right or wrong. I'm just saying, in the general public's view, what would they think of as the most kooky? And then then the mainstream will focus on that, and you see they're all like that. You guys don't believe in evolution, and you guys don't believe in climate change, right? And it's true, maybe some of us don't. I don't believe in the official narrative of evolution, and I don't, the whole man-made climate change thing. It's and again, that's a bit of a simplification too, because we're probably influencing the climate, but is it completely man driven? No, I'm skeptical of that. But that's, again, obfuscating the question. It's indirectly moving the question, the discussion away into something else to tie things down. I mean, why is that even important? Like, that's not why we gathered here. We didn't all gather to say, oh, evolution's wrong and climate change is wrong. It's like, no, we gathered here because of the lockdown and the stupid narrative about the virus, not for those other questions. Those other questions can come up, but that's not integral to the discussion. So these sorts of like maneuvering tactics are very slimy. That's how they try to get you. So anyways, if someone tells you, I'm not into conspiracy theories, I don't believe in conspiracy theories, just ask them, what on earth do they mean? Hasta luego, amigos.